Now let me bring in Ryan Frazier. He's a Republican running for Congress, also in Colorado. Ryan, you are, if I'm not mistaken here, you were in the Navy, in the National Security Agency. You worked for Raytheon. So you're obviously part of the military-industrial complex. Why are you running?
Well, you know, I don't know. You know, it's for so many reasons. And I think we owe our children a better America, and that you know, each and every one of us has a role to play, a part to play in helping shape the type of America that we want it to be, and that we want it to be for future generations. And you know, for me, this is the way I thought I could make a difference for fighting for the types of policies that I think create a prosperous America, to fight to balance our budget, and to fight for a Congress that's accountable to the people. And so, you know, Glenn, at the end of the day, we have to stand up. It's up to us, the type of America we leave our children and our grandchildren. And I thought this was one way I could make a difference.
Well, what's the biggest problem in America?
Well, you know, there are a number of ways I can answer that, Glenn, but I will tell you right now, the economic problem in our country is a big one. The levels of uncertainty we have today are unparalleled, and we haven't seen them in a generation or more. You know, the Wall Street Journal reported several weeks ago that non-financial companies are sitting on over $1.8 trillion in cash and other liquid assets. I talk to small businesses all across Colorado and right here in the 7th Congressional District, and they tell me time and again that they're not investing, they're not hiring, because they don't know what the health care law is going to do to them. Their taxes are due to increase in January, and this administration and this Congress continues to threaten them with more taxes and more regulations. You know, we have to restore confidence in this country so that our American entrepreneur and investor has the confidence to invest and start creating the jobs right here in America. I'm optimistic we can do it, but it's going to take a new Congress and new leadership in Washington.
Let me ask you, do you have your soul?
I like to think so. Absolutely.
I'm asking you because do you realize how many people are going to be after it when you get to Washington? And I mean that in all sincerity. When you get into Washington, if you get into Washington, the GOP and the Democrats and everyone else when's the last time you saw Mr. Smith Goes to Washington?
It's been some time since
you should watch it, because he went in and he said, I'm going to do the right thing, and he was co-opted by people he trusted. And before you know it, you're standing there going, oh my gosh, I've become one of them. And that's why I wondered if you had your soul yet, and if you knew what you were walking into. How are you planning on not knowing the system, but being able to make sure you're not co-opted? Do you know what I'm saying?
I do. I know what you're saying. I hear it all the time on the ground here in Colorado. People wonder whether the Ryan Frazier they see today will be the same Ryan Frazier if I'm elected to Washington. How do you maintain that sense of principle, ideas, as well as being accountable to the people? And I can only tell you this, Glenn, you know, between my family, my wife Kathy, and our 3 children, they keep me very well grounded. But something I've always taken pride in, and that's making myself both available and accessible to the people that I seek to represent. And I think that's one way you stay accountable to those you serve, and I intend to do just that.
Okay.
What we cannot afford to do, Glenn, I think, is do nothing. You know, Edmund Burke once said that all it takes for evil to triumph is for good men, and I would submit good women, to do nothing. And so this is the way in which I've chosen to step up and step forward, but I agree with you. The culture in Washington, D.C. has to change. That's both Democrats and Republicans, because both Democrats and Republicans are responsible for the mess we're in today. And I think we need new voices from all backgrounds, all stripes, all socioeconomic statuses to step up and step forward and to hold ourselves accountable for what it is we said we would do.
Back in just a second.
Honesty.
Honesty.
Honesty, but it's hard to find.
Probably more the people that are genuine. Instead of bashing each other, they just stay strong to what they think is important. If you want someone saying one thing and doing the other, I mean, I know they all do that, but you try to look for someone to be honest.
It's tough to find anybody to trust anymore.
How many people think our biggest problem with our country is that we haven't created any jobs? Okay, biggest problem? No. Okay, let me ask again. How many think the biggest problem is that we haven't created jobs?
I think it's all tied.
Hang on, we got to get a microphone. You're saying it's all tied.
It's all tied together. You need employers to have employees. If you have
But to have companies that succeed and don't fail, you need what I think the biggest problem is. Confidence. Where does confidence come from?
leadership.
Schools, leadership, no. Honesty. We have a confidence problem. We have a trust problem. There is nobody believes anybody anymore. I can't, if you start a business and I want to get into business with you, if I don't know that you're sound, I'm not going to do business with you. If I think you're going to screw me, I'm not going to do business with you. One of the biggest problems we had with all of the banks, because I know some of the people that were at that table at TARP. I know some of them. And I know they were saying to me, we're calling all the other banks and saying, so how are you guys doing? Oh, we're good. How are you doing? Nobody knew. Nobody trusted anybody. If we don't trust anybody, let me ask you this. How many of you trust that the election will be void of fraud?
None. Not even a prayer, not a chance.
None. All right. Let me go back to Ruth. She is just an average person that was an average person that happens to be a physicist. And she said that I want to change things. So she started running. She's 28 years old. She's running as a Republican. Ruth, can you tell me, what do you know about the progressive movement? What do you know about them?
Well, I know that my opponent is co-chair of the Progressive Caucus, and my grandfather talked about the progressive, quote-unquote, ideas even back when he was younger. And they're very regressive in ideas. It's pretty much moving away from individual freedoms. It's moving to take more of the power to Washington, D.C., more of the money to Washington, D.C., rather than letting local people make more of these decisions for themselves.
Do you believe there are progressives that are Republicans?
You know, I don't know how to answer that. It does come down to ideas. I do know that many people do think that more and more power should go to Washington, and that's...
I'm thinking of your own state with Senator John McCain, but maybe that's just me. Let me go to Tom Tancredo, who's running for governor in Colorado. You have been in this, dare I say it, cesspool in Washington, and you have seen it run from the inside. If these two win, what are they in for when they get to Washington?
Oh, brother. I've talked to Ryan about that, as a matter of fact. You know, it was amazing. What happened while I was there, just watching what was going on. I came in truly with all of the enthusiasm in the world for being part of a great party that was going to reduce taxes, that was going to stop spending, that was going to reduce the size of government. And that was 2 years before we elected George Bush. At that point, I got really excited, thinking, now we've got a president, we've got both houses of the Congress, this is going to be great. And it wasn't great. It wasn't great at all, because what I saw were people doing things that were simply pages out of the other guy's book. And after a while, if you keep taking more and more pages out of your opponent's book, you become your opponent. And so
unless your opponent is becoming something that is foreign to the American system.
Well, here's, your question, Glenn, about what's the most dangerous thing or what's the biggest problem.
Yeah.
It is undeniable, certainly the economy and jobs, absolutely, it's a huge looming problem. But I have to tell you something. I fear something else out there. I believe that there's a greater threat, actually, to the America that I love. It's when a president of the United States, when he was running for the presidency, said, and I quote, "I am going to thoroughly transform America." Those words coming out of his mouth during that campaign were the most frightening words he ever uttered, and he uttered a lot of them that were pretty scary.
You know,
but he is doing exactly that. He is trying his best to thoroughly transform America into a place I don't know and I don't like. He doesn't like the America that I love.
Okay.
And he is going to do everything he can to change that. To me, that's a greater threat than anything because, frankly, even the economy, we can deal with this, if we use free market economics, if we rely on individual responsibility and ethics, we can deal with this economy. It will get better. But if you have changed this country so much that we can't go back, that's stuck in some sort of European socialist system this president wants, I'll tell you, that to me is scarier than almost anything else.
Okay, when we come back, I want to talk a little bit about state rights with Tom. And then the other two candidates, I want to talk a little bit about make the case that the rich are paying their fair share. Because that's what Harding and Coolidge had to do to the American people. They did it. But that's really what you're up against next year. Make that case. And more with the audience here in just a second.
In Massachusetts, yes.
Maybe.
Yes, I am.
No, I won't. Because I never vote.
A Republican, yes.
Yes. Yes, absolutely.
Yes.
Oh, definitely.
How many are planning on voting? Renee, let's start with you. You have a question about what can be done.
Right. So November 3rd, everything goes our way, and we're hoping that for the changes and everybody's implemented and exactly what can be done to, kind of draw the line in the sand and start changing some things around,
This is what I fear. And everyone, there's lots of people listen to on TV. I'm the worrywart. But I've had a pretty good track record so far. And if you think like a member of the Tides Foundation, if you think like George Soros, that there is a new world order that will come, and you believe that the dollar should come down and it should be parallel with all other currencies, your Van Jones, your Bill Ayers, your Code Pink, your some of the progressives all around, your probably 90% of the people that were represented at 10-2-10. You don't mind chaos and agitation. You don't mind that. My fear is that the Republicans get in and all they can do is stand and say, "You shall not pass." They're Gandalf. You shall not pass. But in 46 this happened, and the Republicans ran the slogan, "Had enough yet?" And they did this, "You shall not pass," because they didn't have anything to be able to really move forward. They had no ability to move anything forward. And so they became the do-nothing Congress, and they lost for 30 years. On the day after the election, the Fed has their Weimar moment. This is something I've been warning about for 2 years when Bush was in office. Weimar moment is coming, and that is when the politicians and the Fed, in Weimar it was their German central bank, when they get together and the politicians say, "You've got to print money." And the Fed, in Weimar, the central bank, said, "We can't print money, because if we do, eventually we'll go into hyperinflation and people will use wheelbarrows full of money to buy a loaf of bread." The politicians then said, "Then you will be responsible for the chaos, because if you don't make the debt, if you don't pay this, then everything's going to shut down, because we have to service the debt. We have to pay that money. So no one will have any money. So companies will shut down. Banks will shut down. Everything will shut down. People will lose their job, and there'll be violence in the streets." The Fed central bank then said, "Well, but that's going to happen in the end anyway." But the politicians said, "Well, but maybe something will happen in between. We know if you shut it down, we know it will happen tomorrow." This is what happened when they gave TARP. They knew if they didn't give TARP, it would shut down